the Hood Mystic, and I'm back with another video. So some of you might know me, some of you don't. But for those of you who know me, you know that I normally post content up here with my spiritual readings. However, today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm still going to be doing my spiritual readings, but today I want to relaunch a series that I created a couple of years ago called Total Talk. And the reason why I created that series was to share experiences, ideas, information. It also gives people a chance to share their information, give feedback, and their opinions about a range of different topics. So it's just kind of like a free space where everyone could just talk and kind of share what they think about different things. So I decided to relaunch this page. So if you're interested in my content, you could definitely subscribe here. So today for my relaunch, I want to talk about a topic called shadow work. So some of you might be familiar with the term, some of you may not. However, if you're not familiar with the term, that's okay, because that's the reason why we're here. Also, anything that I talk about, this content is all based off things that I've studied, experiences, my opinions. So, you can always research anything that I say in this video and just kind of gain your own understanding or perspective about it. But all comments are welcome. But I do want to keep this as clean audience. So don't be disrespectful in the comments. Allow people to have their opinions and allow people to share, what they think without us arguing or, I want it to be a place where we show each other respect for different perspectives. So for those of you who don't know what shadow work is the process of exploring the unconscious part of your personality. This is something that we all have aspected within ourselves. Everyone. There's nobody on this earth that's human that does not have a shadow side. So let's get more into it. I have been doing this on myself for the past 2 years, and I really feel like it's worth sharing. So why is it important to explore your shadow side? 2 reasons. Number 1, by the time you're age 18, everyone's personality is just a collection of beliefs, traditions, conditions, and ideas formed by the people who raised you. And the second reason why it's important to explore this is because doing shadow work uncovers every part of you that has been disowned, repressed, and rejected. So to me, I feel like it is one of the most important, authentic paths to discovering your true self. So this is something that would never be taught to you in school. And you would never be taught this by your parents either, because they probably don't know what it is as well. So your parents have their own shadow sides that they deal with, and you probably witnessed it as a kid. You just didn't know what it was. And you may have even become a follower of their traits, and you might portray it in your everyday daily behavior. So now that you become aware of the term shadow, and you know that it's a hidden part of yourself that you aren't consciously aware of, what's next? Face yourself on a deeper level, and you reconnect to the truth of who you really are. You take one of the most important tasks you'll ever encounter by developing a better perspective of yourself. When I tell y'all this is more important than anything else you believe has a higher priority in your life, I'm not kidding. You will be unhappy and stuck in situations that are ridiculous and unnecessary, and you will not be able to fulfill your true purpose in life. You ever hear how people say, I don't know what my purpose is. I want to know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm here for, what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm confused. But the truth is, the reason why you don't probably know your purpose is because 9 times out of 10, your shadow side is blocking you from actually fulfilling it. Yes, pretty deep stuff. So blockings to blessings in your life. It could.
Look at this village's house. I think I made it.
Oh, okay.
The village's house that's they were trying to run away from me. Oh, village's house, stop closing the door. That's it. I'm killing you.
Ooh, gotta adjust the camera. Oh man. Okay. So, like I was saying, not doing your shadow work can seriously block your blessings. And it could also cause your life to be stagnated for years on end, like years. You'll never see the stagnation, you'll never see the true issue to what's blocking your happiness, your true happiness, unless you start discovering your shadow side. Okay? So if you're still watching up to this point, I'm going to share some insight on how this works. Due to time constraints, I can't cover everything in one video, but I'm definitely going to turn this into a mini series so that I could continue exploring this topic with you guys. And so I'm definitely not going to get to everything in one video, but I'll create parts and I'll continue to explore with you. All right, so let me know in the comments if you like this content or if you're interested in knowing more. All right, so for now, we're going to peel back the layers of useful info that goes along with working on your shadow, okay? So one is your ego and how it plays the biggest role in the demise of your everyday life. Yeah, your ego. You would be so surprised. You would be so surprised, okay? Number two, your parents and how they influence your behavior. No offense to the parents out there. I'm a parent myself, and I have shadow traits. So we all do it. And the last one is going to be examples of what your shadow self looks like and experiences. All right. So I'm just going to start off by saying doing this has completely transformed my life, and it has awakened me to my life's true purpose. Like, if I never did this, I would still be struggling with trying to figure out what my purpose is in life, what I should be doing, why am I here. I would just have like a lot of confusion and roadblocks. So I'm actually really proud of myself. It's been a tough journey. I'm still not perfect. I'll never be perfect. None of us are perfect, and that's okay. But I am definitely a work in progress, and I continue to work on myself daily. All right, so let's start with the ego. Okay, so the ego, surprisingly enough, is actually a completely different person than who you truly are. Look it up when you get a chance. This is psychology, okay? Anything that I say in this video, like I said, you can debunk it, you can give it feedback, criticize it, whatever. You are welcome to do your own research and come back with information, or even if you don't come back with information, again, your own research. This is just my research, my experience, my opinions. So, back to the ego. So the ego is basically an impression of yourself formed by beliefs that were sashayed into your life as a kid. This is the part of your mind that is based on what you learned about yourself from friends, family, and experiences. So your ego identifies you as a collection of your habits, beliefs, and traits about yourself. It develops to protect you from your reality. It creates an identity to help you cope with any confusion, disconnection, and loss of love that you experienced as a child. As you aged, you were taught what to believe about achievement, relationships, emotions, and people, and you turned it into your own values. You could think of the ego as your annoying little brother or sister in your mind that just won't shut up. Whenever you're trying to better yourself, your ego will remind you of a time you failed, and it will tell you all the reasons you won't succeed. It's actually very deceitful. However, we are not consciously aware of it, and we are extremely attached to it. So we don't know that sometimes we can be harming ourselves due to our ego. Okay, so if you give into your ego consistently, you're probably self-sabotaging some area of your life without even knowing it. So like I was saying, as you aged, you were taught what to believe, again, about achievements, relationships, emotions. All of this was taught to you by the people that you were raised by, even if it wasn't positive. The ego is very rigid and defensive. It has its own set of patterns and behaviors that most people label as their personality. Anything outside of your ego, confirmed thoughts, beliefs, or behaviors will be completely rejected. But I promise you, this is not your real personality. This is actually a false self that you created because you look for experiences unconsciously that convince you to believe this about yourself. The ego wants you to be comfortable. Your true self, however, your soul, wants you to grow. So, here are 6 signs your ego is hurting you. Number 1, your thoughts are intentionally or unintentionally creating bad outcomes or hurting people that you deeply love. Number 2, you're allowing invisible negative audio tapes to be played out in your mind about things that you can clearly make progress in. Number 3, if other people provide feedback about what they observe, you see it as criticism or an attack. Number 4, you may display issues of power struggles between yourself and others, having a hard time compromising, having a hard time seeing a different perspective, having a hard time being considerate, or not doing things that are only serving to yourself. Okay. Number 5, your ego acts out of pride by not admitting when you're wrong, ignoring people who mean a lot to you, or just simply not apologizing for harsh actions. Number 6, seeing only the fault in others and dismissing the part you played. And you might even have people that cheer you on too, and they know that it's wrong because that's their ego acting out, and you guys are just a bunch of people who believe in the same ego-driven attitudes. If you display any of those habits, your ego is hurting you. All right? It's just to help you get a better understanding of yourself on a deeper level. So, moving on, let's talk about how your parents influenced your behavior. So, your parents have for years conditioned your mind to view the world and people the way they do, whether it is positive or negative. So remember, like I said in the beginning, by the time you was 18, most of your true values were overshadowed by what they taught you. But how can that be true if it's based on their experiences of the world and how they experienced it? Now, this is not to say that they're wrong, but you do have to examine as an adult whether what they experience or believe is really true for you. Because remember, you're not them. You have different views and feelings about the world, and you most definitely have not been through what they've been through. So, how can these beliefs apply to your everyday life? For one, you was raised in a completely different era than they was. So right there shows it's a possibility that these beliefs may be outdated. And for 2, they have their own shadow aspects that they developed due to their own childhood. So again, not all the things that they taught you is true for you. However, since you were a kid, you had no control over this, but as an adult, it's your responsibility to take a closer look at these habits and beliefs. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how this even happens. Each one of us has 4 parts of ourselves that are playing out in our ego and conscious mind daily. The first one is your inner child. This is the tender you. It's the innocent part of you that's all about your feeling and primal needs. This plays out as cravings for love. It plays out as cravings to connect with people, to feel safe, curious, or just totally expressing feelings of anger, sadness, or joy. The second one is your outer child. Your outer child is responsible for self-defeating behaviors too. The outer child responds to the inner child actually by acting out and trying to protect it. This plays out as impulsiveness, self centered attitudes, it fights against change, and inner growth. It can also be irrational and spiteful. This is your outer child, something you guys may want to look up. The third one is the wounded child. This is the you that responds to emotional or psychological neglect. It plays out in your insecurities, your self esteem, your fears of disapproval from specific settings or groups. Also, it seeks instant gratification through distractions, procrastinations, or use of substances. And last is your integrated adult. The integrated adult is when you have a healthy dialogue that you have formed between the inner child and your adult self. When you have mastered this, you are able to connect to bodily sensations and emotions. You can clearly identify and communicate your emotions. You'll be able to identify your needs, and you will allow the inner child to have big feelings without shutting it down. This one, the integrated adult, was one of the more difficult ones for me. It was very challenging, and I still have difficulties to this day, but I am able to recognize and catch myself. It can be challenging, but it's not impossible. I honestly wish I knew about all this sooner, because this has helped me truly have compassion for myself and others who are struggling with the same thing. If you or anyone you know may need help or guidance with this, I do offer consulting services. I'm an intuitive life coach to plenty of people. Doing shadow work helped me, like I said, discover that what I'm doing right now was a part of my life's purpose. I also practice the tarot card readings, like I told you, which is divination, and that's another one of my gifts. So please feel free to email me. My consulting service email is starseedgalactic@gmail.com. I also use that email for my tarot card readings, and I'll link the spelling of it in the description box. So you can email me there if you just want some tips, some techniques about how to work on integrating your adult self, or even if you just want information about any other content that I covered. So moving forward, let's get into the last layer. What are some examples of your shadow self, and what does it look like in experiences? So there are 13, but I'm not going to name all of them because time constraints. However, I will name 7, and when I post the next video, then I'll continue on the remainder, and then I'll share more content. All right, so the first one is your ego. Ironic, right? So the ego is your first shadow trait, or one of the, not your first shadow trait, because you may not have this issue, but it's the first one of the shadow traits. So the root cause of creating the ego is a characteristic that derives from a deep fear of not being good enough. So doing shadow work really requires you to be extremely honest with yourself. You have to talk to yourself and accept yourself for this part of yourself that, again, was repressed and rejected. So this is why it created these characteristics. But this is a part of your ego, so you don't have to continue to be this way. You can work on yourself and you can become your best, but you have to be willing to consistently look at yourself and consistently find other alternatives to be a better person. So the traits that you display in your ego is arrogance, excessive pride, narcissistic tendencies, and self-centeredness. This can show up at your workplace. This can show up in your personal relationships, your friendships, with your family. And if you don't have it in check, you can ruin situations that could potentially be just some type of level of success for you, or just something that possibly makes you happy. Okay, so number two, the second shadow trait is the neurotic monster. The root cause of this characteristic is a fear of life and others with the desire to gain control. Some traits that you may display is paranoia, compulsive behavior, and suspiciousness and obsessiveness. Okay, the third shadow trait is the untrustworthy monster. The root cause of this is the fear of life in general. Traits you display are frivolous spending, impulsiveness, secretive nature, unresponsible choices, and deceit. Number four is the emotionally unstable monster. The root cause of this is a feeling of being unlovable. It's a reaction to unresolved emotional pain. Traits you may display are moodiness, manipulation, and impulsiveness. Number five is the controlling monster. The root cause is mistrust of life and feelings, again, of not being good enough. Traits you can display is suspicion, obsessiveness, and jealousy. Number six is the cynical monster. The root cause is protection against being vulnerable. Traits you may display are resentment, negativity, and overly critical beliefs. Number seven is the rigid monster. The root cause of this is fear and rejection of the unknown. Traits you may display is closed-mindedness, inflexibility to change, intolerance, and extreme pride. Okay? So, that is just a few. In my next video, like I said, I'll cover the rest of the shadow traits. I'll also go more in depth about ways to keep the ego in check and get closer to living your life's full potential. This is how you will unblock stuck, stagnated attitudes that you may have. So, anyway, thanks for watching. And like I said, you can subscribe to my channel to be notified when I upload new content, and feel free to email me. Until next time, later.